Hello everyone, this is the first of a reaction type video for this channel that I am doing. I wanted to kind of look into what other people have said about other people, or what people say about certain personality disorders or certain relationships they had, or anything that kind of inspires me that's kind of relative to this channel. I wanted to do like a reaction type video or an informational type video. Now I happened upon Robin Williams, and I think this video is a good example of what I could use for this channel. It talks about his life, it talks about his growing up, it talks about his drugs, his adultery, his persona that he created. Now the question is, did Robin Williams have narcissistic personality disorder or traits of narcissism? So this is a video by the Biography channel. Biographics. Okay. The channel is called Biographics on YouTube, and the video is called Robin Williams Biography: The Darkness Behind the Light. So let's get off of this.
He was a comic genius who had only one speed setting, and that was full throttle. From the moment he burst into our lives as an alien on Happy Days, he amazed us with his range of talent.
I didn't know he was on Happy Days. I knew him from Mork and Mindy. I watched Mork from Mork all the time. I loved him in that show. Happy Days I watched all the time. I think it was reruns. But I kind of think he was on it, but I don't remember. So, that's good information. He's got a lot of information.
It's utterly left us breathless. Yet, behind the manic shtick of Robin Williams was a man who was deeply plagued by depression. He had other demons, such as alcohol and cocaine as well. Still, he kept us in...
They had a lot of addictions. I'm only going to go with what I know about narcissistic personality disorder. If Sam Vaknin or Dr. Grande can chime in on this, this would be excellent. This is just my opinion. I think just using this as a template, it's good to learn. I'm not diagnosing, I'm not a therapist or anything. I just think it's a good learning template.
To the very end, which made it all the more unfathomable to his legion of fans and admirers when he took his life at the age of just 63. In today's Biographics, we intend to get the essence of the real Robin Williams.
I may have to cut this up just for, I guess, copyright issues. I don't know, since this is the first time I'm doing this. We'll see. Early life.
Robin McLaurin Williams came into the world on July the 21st, 1951. Born at St. Luke's Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, he was the only child of Laurie and Robert Williams. The family was wealthy, with Robert being a senior executive.
See, that's the thing, the wealth part. That's what made me want to hear from Sam Vaknin. I did watch this a little bit before filming. I actually recorded on my laptop so I can use it to overlay on this. We'll see how this works. It's going to be the first time with this type of software, free software. Yeah, because Sam Vaknin was brought up as a child prodigy, I think rich and isolated, I think from what he said. Don't quote me.
Ford Motor Company. Laurie was a former model and a part-time actress. Much of Robin's formative years were spent alone in the...
His mother was a part-time actress. Oh, wow. Now, if that's not narcissism handed down to children, there's so many things of, like, these actresses with their mothers. They're like, now you gotta be this in public, you gotta do this. No, 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 you're my little puppy dog. Because the mother is usually the one with the dependency on alcohol, was never there, and then the child had to kind of rear the mother.
Huge mansion that was his home. In order to cope with his loneliness, he created characters and conversations in his head.
He created characters and conversations in his head. So typically narcissistic that you have to create a persona because you're not happy with the one you are dealing with, which is yourself.
He was an overweight child, which led to bullying at school. The 6th grade, he later recalled, was the most difficult year of his life. Many days he went home crying after constant name-calling and physical harassment. Each day was torment for him, with his only friends being the ones he created in his own imagination. These difficult early...
Creating imaginary friends. I don't know about that one.
Years brought on a depression that Robin was to grapple with for the rest of his life. Robin began by using comedy as a defense mechanism. It started with his mother. Laurie had a very sharp wit and would often use humor laced with sarcasm to communicate with her.
In other words, his mother was a bitch. Okay, let's just be strict. His mother was a narcissistic bitch, and she bullied Robin, who had to come up with defense mechanisms. And that was the only way, the way he could please his mother. I think he said this here.
In order to connect with her, Robin had to make his mother laugh. It wasn't good enough to be Robin, he had to be funny Robin. By the time...
Yep. He couldn't be himself. He had to be his character. Bingo!
When he was 16, the family had relocated to California, where Robin attended Redwood High School. It was the late 60s, and the straight-laced Robin found himself in the middle of a counterculture that revolved around drugs and sex. He was able to loosen up, and after dealing with marijuana, found himself fitting in for the first time. It was at Redwood High that he stumbled upon the drama department. He had already perfected his comedic veneer, quickly establishing a reputation as the class clown. He felt totally in love with the idea...
A reputation. Sorry, I'm breathing. In between doing this video, I'm actually doing squats. I have to do several things at one time. It allows me to go through this. I can't just sit down. But anyways, so he created a persona and he got a reputation. Narcissists are really attached to their reputation. They really care about what people think about them, and they want to appear good in public.
Improv performance, his comedic personality slowly emerging through drama classes. At the same time, Robin got involved in wrestling and soccer, proving to be an accomplished athlete. But by the time he graduated in...
Okay, so he was an overall great person, right? He did everything, right? Godlike, maybe? Omnipotent, if that's the word.
1969, he was voted by his classmates as least likely to succeed. Not surprisingly, though, he was also voted funniest student. After graduating, he attended Claremont Men's College. His sights, they were set on a career in political science. Before long, however, he was spending more time in the college theatre than he was in lecture rooms. He won the coveted role of Fagin in the college's production of Oliver, turning in a stellar performance that made it clear that he was destined for the limelight. Leaving behind...
He was destined for the limelight. You know, artists, sometimes they're known as being very narcissistic. They need the fame, they need the limelight.
His diplomatic ambitions, Robin involved in a community college theatre program. During classes, he would often improvise, leaving his classmates and teachers in fits of laughter. After 3 years of honing his craft, he was offered the opportunity of a lifetime. Full scholarship to the Juilliard School of Performing Arts in New York City. Robin was one of only 2 students accepted into the 1973 advanced program at Juilliard. The other, well, that was future Superman actor Christopher Reeve. Reeve, who had become a close friend, recalled his first impressions upon meeting Williams. He wore tie-dye shirts with tracksuit bottoms and talked a mile a minute. I'd never seen so much energy contained in one person. He was like an untied balloon that had been inflated and immediately released. I watched in awe as he virtually caromed off the walls of the class and hallways. To say that he was on would be a major understatement. At Juilliard...
So he was always on. That's kind of what I didn't like about Robin Williams. I'm sorry to bash him that he's dead, but I loved Mork for Mork, Nanu Nanu, and that's all I've seen of him. I never saw any of his films. I may have seen some clips of Mrs. Doubtfire. I know what it's about. I may have, but I was never, Good Will Hunting and whatever other films he's did, I was never interested. I never liked his, or never inspired, or never, I guess I was ambivalent. I wasn't impressed by his interviews. That it was always manic. It didn't resonate with me. Sorry.
Juilliard, well, Robin, he astounded his teachers and fellow students alike. He was able to take on a persona of characters with ease, trading out one accent or dialect for another like he was born to do it. However, Robin, he was frustrated at Juilliard. He just didn't
I have the air conditioning on. Hold up.
fit in. After 2 years, his teachers told him that there was nothing more that they could teach him. One of his instructors considered Robin to be a genius who was not being properly served by the school's conservative and classical training style. He left Juilliard
A genius. Now that doesn't cultivate narcissism.
in 1976 to launch himself onto the world. His first stop was the stand-up circuit on the West Coast. Robin's first break into the realms of comedy came at a club in the San Francisco Bay Area. His first gig was at the Holy City Zoo, where he also spent time tending bar. These early sets, they were frantic, bordering on psychotic. No one had ever seen anything quite like Robin Williams. He played a collection of rather edgy characters, including Reverend Oral Satisfaction. His early stand-up was influenced by the likes of Lenny Bruce, Peter Sellers, and Jonathan Winters.
Sex addiction. A lot of narcs have sex addictions.
His manic edge, quick-fire ad-lib routines, and off-the-wall physical comedy proved an absolute hit, and he soon established a loyal following. Robin loved the immediate feedback that came with stand-up comedy, and it was something that he would continue right through his career. Despite the apparent ease of his performances, he actually found stand-up incredibly stressful. Underneath the cloak of his act, he was an intensely
Of course, he wasn't being himself. But that's a lot of actors, you know?
shy man. He once said that he started using drugs and alcohol as a crutch to combat stage nerves. In 1977, Williams he moved to Los Angeles, where he began performing at the Comedy Club. It was here that he was discovered by TV producer George Schlatter, who offered him a spot in a revival of the old 60s show, Laugh-In. Now the show, well, it ultimately didn't survive, but for Williams, it established a foothold into a career in television. He became a semi-regular cast member on The Richard Pryor Show, while also continuing to perform stand-up. It was an appearance on The Richard Pryor Show.
I didn't know Richard Pryor had his own show. I'm out of the loop.
Happy Days. After 5 years, the scriptwriters, well, they were running out of ideas, though they hadn't yet jumped the shark. They decided to do an episode taking off the 1960s sci-fi comedy My Favorite Martian. The episode, well, it was called My Favorite Orcan, and it called for the casting of an actor to play an alien from the land of Orc. Marshall thought that Williams might be the man for the job. In what has gone down as possibly the most brilliant audition in TV history, Robin entered the room and immediately sat in the chair on his head. He continued to do his lines and then broke into an inspired ad-lib. Marshall cast him on the spot, later commenting that Williams was the only alien who turned up for the part. The episode of Happy Days, it was originally shot as a dream sequence on the part of Richie Cunningham. However, the character played by Williams, Mork from Orc, was such a hit with the TV-watching audience after an initial broadcast that the ending was refilmed so that Mork was a real character. Much of Robin's work on the Happy Days episode was improvised and augmented with physical comedy. Audiences couldn't get enough of the zany alien and demanded much more.
Yeah, I know he does a lot of physical comedy. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I got tired of it with all his other films. I don't know.
This led to the creation of the spin-off series Mork and Mindy, which ran from 1978 to 1982. The show catapulted Williams to absolute stardom literally overnight. After just 2 weeks on the air, it had zoomed to the top 10 of the Nielsen ratings. The producers of the show, they kept the script loose enough to give Robin plenty of room to do as he pleased, and the results were unpredictable, over the top, and hilarious. While the critics, they weren't overly enthused with the show, they were
over the top and hilarious. Yeah, that describes Robin Williams to me. Over the top. I just... I guess I was kind of over it after Mork and Mindy, I guess. I don't know.
absolutely falling over themselves to lavish praise upon its star. Mork and Mindy, it quick.
I like to have this. He put the superstar title. Not narcissistic there.
He became a pop culture phenomenon. A generation of kids took to wearing Mork's trademark rainbow suspenders and greeting their friends with the words "Nanu Nanu." Robin went from relative obscurity to instant fame in the space of a couple of months. It was something that he was entirely unprepared for, and unfortunately it led to him indulging in the excesses that come with fame: drugs, alcohol, and women. Just like he acted in The Fast Lane.
But it was kind of what he wanted also. People are always searching for fame. And then when you get it, it's too much. And then you're in these coping mechanisms, to kind of deal with it. I guess because it's difficult to be authentic in all those scenarios. You have to be the character that you put out to the world all the time.
He also lived his life in the fastest of fast lanes. He quickly slipped into the habit of partying into the early hours, crawling home at 5 in the morning, and then having to be on set by 10 a.m. There is no doubt, though, that Robin he was blessed with more physical energy than most. Inevitably, however, that energy began to burn out. He would sometimes fall asleep on the set, or just sit dormant in off mode. One night, after performing a late-night set at a comedy club, Robin...
That off mode was him being himself, the empty shell. Sometimes you see little bits of the empty shell of someone who's narcissistic. Because it's kind of very difficult to keep putting on that charade over and over again, 24/7, 365, year after year.
Met up with fellow comic John Belushi. They ended up at the Chateau Marmont, where Robbins shared some of Belushi's cocaine and then left. The next day, on the set of Mork and Mindy, co-star Pam Dawber broke the news to Williams that Belushi had died of a drug overdose. The news, well, that shocked him into making significant changes in his lifestyle. The death of Belushi tarnished the image of Hollywood's fastest-living brat pack. Robin was called to testify before a grand jury, an experience which, along with the shock of Belushi's death and the birth of his first child, Zach, allowed him to break free from the stranglehold of drugs and alcohol. It was at this time that he discovered cycling, a form of exercise which he credits for saving his life. After 4 years, Mork and Mindy had lost its maestro.
From one addiction to another, that tends to happen. I guess he didn't want that. This is only speculation, right? I don't think that he cared about dying or not. I think he just didn't want to be perceived in the same light as John Belushi. So he wanted to be perceived as someone who's taking care of his health. It's all about reputation, I don't think he was doing it for himself.
Producers tried whatever they could to resurrect the initial appeal, but nothing seemed to work. They decided to make Mork less naive, allowing Williams to work in more of his nightclub act material. Interestingly, the Mork character also found its way into his stand-up routines, though not by Robin's design. Audience members at late-night shows would simply yell out, "Do Mork!" To which Robin would frustratingly respond, "Mork's not here. I'm a different guy." By the middle of 1982, though, the character that had propelled Williams to superstar status was beginning to feel like a millstone around his neck. So it came as somewhat of a relief to him when Mork and Mindy was cancelled after 4 seasons. In 1976, Robin met Valerie Velarde while working as a bartender in San Francisco shortly after leaving Juilliard. She was a dancer, having studied at Juilliard herself. They began a relationship and, after 2 years, were married on June 4th, 1978. Valerie, she endured her husband's cocaine addiction and wild partying lifestyle for a number of years. As we mentioned, though, among other things, it was the birth of his son Zachary on April the 11th, 1983, that led him to finally shake off his addictions. However, there was one thing that he was not able to control, and that was his wandering eye. He ended up having an affair
because he wanted to seem perfect in front of his son. Makes sense.
With a cocktail waitress by the name of Michelle Tish Carter. Then, in 1986, Miss Carter sued Williams for...
There you go. Narcissists who have many people lined up. Yep.
$6.4 million, claiming that he had knowingly infected her with herpes simplex virus. He settled out of court, only for his wife to sue for divorce a few months later. On April the 30th, 1989, less than a year after his divorce from Valerie being finalized, Williams married Marcia Grimes, the former nanny to his son Zach. They had actually been carrying on an affair during the last 2 years of his previous marriage.
Yep, you already had someone else, and the nanny to boot.
Marriage. At the time of the wedding, Marcia was pregnant with Robin's child, a daughter.
Of course. Come on.
Who they named Zelda Ray. 2 years later, they had a second child, Cody Allen. The marriage, it lasted 19 years, but Marcia finally left after she realized she wasn't able to handle Robin's relapse into addiction. Williams, he married for the third and final time in 2011. This was to Susan Schneider.
Relapsed. Because he didn't want to stop. It's like, he's doing it just to show something that he's not. It's not coming from within. You know what I mean?
He was a graphic designer at the time. He met her while recovering from a heart operation in 2009. They were still together at the time of his death in 2014.
5 years ago. Movie star.
Robin's fame on the small screen, it inevitably aroused the interests of movie makers. His first starring role came in 1980's Popeye. The movie, though, it was...
Oh, I saw Popeye. I forgot he was in Popeye. I did see one of his films, Popeye. Yeah.
A financial and critical flop, and it looked like Williams's film career was over before it had really gotten started.
And I like the flops, I guess.
But then in 1982's The World According to Garp, he was able to show more of his dramatic acting talents. The film, it was well received, with critic Roger Ebert calling Robin's performance unconventional and absorbing. Following a couple of smaller roles, he got his
The World According to Gump? Or Garth? I didn't understand what he said. It wasn't Forrest Gump, that was Tom Hanks.
Screen break in 1987's Good Morning Vietnam. This role...
I don't know if I've seen Good Morning Vietnam. I know the expression when he was like, Good Morning Vietnam! With that voice. But that's all I know. I don't know if I've seen it.
Was Adrian Cronauer, a real-life armed forces DJ stationed in Saigon during the war. It was tailor-made for Williams's manic style. In fact, nearly everything that he did on screen was totally improvised. The performance, it was good enough to earn him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. Over the next decade, Williams appeared in an impressive number of films, displaying a huge range and appeal across the generations. He shone as both a dramatic and a comic actor, with his first and only Oscar coming for Best Supporting Actor, playing a psychologist in 19...
I didn't see that film. Is that the one with Matt Damon and his friend who played Batman, Ben Affleck? Was that the same film? I'm not sure. But I didn't see it. I think that may have been one I wanted to see.
1997's Good Will Hunting. He had previously received 2 nominations for 1988's Dead Poets Society and 1991.
Didn't see any of those.
The Fisher King. Perhaps Williams's most versatile role was one in which he never actually was on screen, though. It was his role
I didn't even know about that one.
as the genie in the 1992 Disney animated musical Aladdin. The role had been specifically written for him, although he improvised much of the dialogue, just as he had done in Good Morning Vietnam.
I'm not sure if I saw that. I mean, I know the whole thing. I may have seen scenes, or I may have seen it on YouTube or something. Some things you just kind of see because they're there. I don't know.
Williams went on to play what would be his most beloved character in 1993's Mrs. Doubtfire. In this movie, he portrayed a recently divorced actor who takes on the persona of an elderly Scottish housemaid to get closer to his children. He spent...
Hollywood reflects reality, right? Putting on this persona, taking all this time and energy to put on this persona to go see his children, I guess, or to be something that he's not in front of his children. Again, going back to when he quit his addictions, you know, to make it look like to his children that he's a model human being. People do that all the time. I don't knock him for it. I mean, I don't have children. But I understand that some people who want the will to live will have children, and all their energy will be focused on them as opposed to themselves, because they think they've already failed in life, so they kind of redirect their energies it gives them another reason to live type thing. It's pretty common.
4 hours every day putting on his makeup to play the part. Well, the movie, it was a great success, and a sequel was actually in the works at the time of Williams's death in 2014.
Never saw that.
His darkest role, it came in 2002's 1 Hour Photo. Williams played a lonely photo technician who becomes obsessed with a family whose photos he has developed for years. He received rave reviews from such esteemed critics as Leonard Maltin and Roger Ebert. Robbins
Never saw it.
What?
Out a 38-year career that encompassed 74 movies. He did 74 movies?
In 1966, together with fellow celebrity Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal, Robin founded Comic Relief USA. The charity helps the homeless, with $80 million being raised as of last year. Together with his second wife, he also created the Windfall Foundation to help donate money to a variety of causes, including St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. On May the 27th, 1955, Robin's close friend Christopher Reeve was thrown from a horse and paralyzed. Robin dropped everything and rushed to be at his bedside. He turned up in full costume as a crazed Russian doctor, giving Reeve the first laugh since his tragic accident. Robin would go on to donate huge sums to research into spinal cord injury. When Reeves died in 2004, Robin was absolutely devastated. Williams was also passionate about supporting the military. He travelled and performed at many bases around the globe, and he was...
Again, is he doing this from the kindness of his heart, or he's doing it for the public persona to seem that he's altruistic? You know what I mean? It's hard to tell.
Well known as a modern-day Bob Hope. During his career, he entertained over 100,000 troops in 13 countries.
Addict!
Williams managed to quit alcohol and cocaine in the early 1980s. However, in 2003, he lapsed back into alcohol abuse while working on the movie The Big White on location in Alaska. For the next 3 years, he denied that he had a problem. Finally, he was confronted by family and friends who convinced him to check himself into a substance abuse rehabilitation center in Newberg, Oregon. There, he finally admitted.
You're always an alcoholic. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. So, I mean, those are the demons you have to kind of face. And once an addict, I mean, you're always an addict. We all have a form of addiction in one form or another. Yeah.
Robin began living with a sober companion who was charged with ensuring that he didn't relapse. It was shortly after that that his wife, Marcia, left him. A depressed Robin did what he always did to get by when life got tough. He threw himself into his work, going on tour to do so.
Now, is this depression, or is it because she wasn't willing to take his need for narcissistic supply? It's hard to tell what the news reads and his reputation versus how he really is. I don't know anything deeper than this, you know, just making some hypotheses, you know.
Stand up. But unfortunately, in the middle of this tour, it was discovered that he needed heart surgery. The operation, it went well, but it required quiet rest in order to recuperate. This forced time of inactivity allowed the demons in his head to have free rein. Williams's addictive personality led to marathon cycling and video gaming sessions. Cycling was a healthy obsession for him, but for a man who struggled with depression his whole life, being alone in a room with a computer was very dangerous. Shortly after this, he began drinking again. At this time, he didn't care who knew. In May of 2014, Williams's new TV show, The Crazy Ones, was cancelled after just one season. In July, he was back in rehab. It was around that time that he also learned that he had Parkinson's disease. After his death, it was discovered that what had been diagnosed as Parkinson's was actually Lewy body dementia. After his death, Robin's wife, Susan, revealed that Robin had been having severe and prolonged episodes of fear and anxiety, insomnia, constipation, stress, and hand tremors that had been going on for over a year. She said that he would constantly tell her,
why would she leave him? his time of need. That's not saying anything very good about her. Or is it the whole story isn't known about him? You know what I mean? Because it's till death do us part, through better and for worse when you get married, right?
I just want to reboot my brain. On August the 11th, 2014, Robin Williams committed suicide by hanging himself with a belt. He died from asphyxiation. His wife Susan stated that he was killed by the terrorist inside my husband's brain. Within hours of the tragic news of his passing, thousands of fans were posting images of themselves standing on their desks.
Or he threatened suicide if she left. And then she left and then he killed himself to make her feel like shit. I don't know.
The caption, "Oh Captain, my Captain," in reference to Robin's character in Dead Poet Society. It was a fitting tribute and a beautiful standoff to this brilliant man. So I really hope you found that video interesting and inspiring. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below and don't forget to subscribe. We've got brand new...
So his legacy is still good in the public's eyes, but we still don't know what the story is.
Inspiring. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below and don't...
Okay, so this was the Biographics channel on YouTube, and it was Robin Williams' biography, The Darkness Behind the Light. Do you think he was a narcissist? Do you think you'll ever know? I mean, it's all about painting the good light, how he was a victim, how this, and how his wife left, couldn't take his addictions, and not, you know, I don't know. It was just something interesting I thought I would talk about. Why don't you leave your comments, click a like on this video, all down there, click the notification button, or just come by and check this channel often, because I don't think, even if you do click the notification bell, that you will get notified of when a new video is out. I try to do them daily. Not always as elegant as this one. Share the videos, post them in groups, go to the Instagram page, Take Back Your Life MTL with underscores under each one, each word, or before each word, or come to the ever popular now Facebook group, Take Back Your Life MTL, no underscores. That's all I got, and see you next time.